Arun, you can start.
Yeah. Welcome everyone to this CEO Speaks series, and what a name we've got today. The managing director of India's largest FMCG giant, Hindustan Lever, Mr. Sanjiv Mehta, who's not only an MBA. I'll talk a little bit about Hindustan Lever after some of the inaugural formalities, but before I get down to the official formal program, and we're all excited to hear from Sanjiv ji because he's a part of our institute, part of our profession as well. I request my colleagues to please play the ICI motto song, please, and I request everyone to please.
य एष सुप्तेषु जागृति य एष सुप्तेषु जागृति कामं 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 कामपुरुषो पुरुषो निर्मिमाणः निर्मिमाणः तदेव शुक्रं तद्ब्रह्मा तद्ब्रह्मा तदेवामृतमुच्यते तस्मिन् लोकः शतः सर्वे तदूनात्यपि कश्चन एतद्द्वैता 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 एतद्द्वैता.
Thank you. And now we begin our CEO Speak series. This is a series where it's a great learning for all of us, great learning from doyens of the industry. And today we are joined by one of them, Mr. Sanjiv Mehta. The person who's conceptualized this series and has got one of our fellow members earlier, industry veteran in internal audit, Satish Shenoy, to moderate this for us, and we're so grateful to him having done this with so many stalwarts, including people like Mr. Chemistry. The person who's conceptualized it is my dear friend and WIC chairman Manish Gadia. Manish, I request you to please speak with our members for a minute or so before I get started.
Thank you, Arun. Respected CA Sanjiv Mehta, President Unilever South Asia and Chairman and MD of Hindustan Unilever Limited, Satish Shenoy, moderator of the session. So it's really a great pleasure that we have conceptualized and we are running this show, CEO Speak, a journey from articleship to CEO. And this is the fourth in the series, and you all are watching this series, so we are also very happy. And apart from that, for members in industry, we have also started a CFO forum where more than 200 CFO of different large size and mid size corporates are there, and they are meeting once in a month and discussing their issues. I will not take much time, but one more appeal I want to make is that you all are aware that this Friday and next Saturday we are having our institute election, that is on 3rd and 4th December, morning 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So my humble request to all the members that they should go and cast their vote, because it is not their only right, but it is their duty to select the right candidate to run the institute. Thank you very much. Over to you, Arun.
Thank you so much, Manish. It's an exciting, almost 60 minutes that await us. I still remember the cub reporter out of CA, having finished journalism and joined CNBC in 2004. One of the first things we had our Saturday meetings, and I still remember the reporter who my friend used to cover FMCG. The question that everyone asked is Hindustan Lever, are they going to cut the prices of shampoo or not? A 50 paise cut in the shampoo sachet price could move the stock market, could be front page headline. And I still remember there was a 30-minute discussion which my editor-in-chief Govind Ethiraj ran on a 50 paise or a 1 rupee cut in the shampoo sachet prices. That is how much it meant for CNBC and its viewers, that cut in prices of shampoo sachet. Of course, I've not looked at those prices in a while now, and I must confess I did not cover either FMCG or Hindustan Lever. But those discussions in the CNBC bureau are something that I would never forget. FMCG evoked emotions. It still does, because that is anyone here, and I'm not here as a brand ambassador of Hindustan Lever, But yes, as a consumer, there's not one person who's attending this webinar who would not be a HUL consumer. But today we are on the management side of Hindustan Lever, and who better than its India MD to talk about it, who's also a chartered accountant, about Hindustan Lever. One point: it's a brand. Unilever is not a global FMCG giant; it's a global FMCG behemoth with over 50 billion euros in annual revenues. In India, it's monstrous. It's huge. It touches probably over 100 crore lives in India, and it's also a company that's produced at the global level Indians who've risen to the global board, including iconic names like Windy Banga, Harish Manwari, and now you have Sanjiv ji himself, which you will realize when I introduce him. I go on to the formal profile, but this is a unique 60 minutes for this reason alone, that Indians from management trainees have gone on to global positions at a brand, at a behemoth like Unilever. And I think we should all be proud of someone like Mr. Sanjiv Mehta, who's done the same. A formal introduction: Mr. Mehta is a member of Unilever's Global Executive Board, Unilever Leadership Executive, which runs the 52 billion euro consumer goods giant. He's President Unilever South Asia and Chairman and Managing Director of Hindustan Unilever Limited, which is India's largest FMCG company. Mr. Mehta has done his bachelor's in commerce, chartered accountancy, and has also completed his advanced management program from the Harvard Business School. He's been with Unilever for 29 years, no surprise, and for the last 19 years, he's led businesses in different parts of the world as Chairman, CEO, including as CMD of Unilever Bangladesh, Chairman, CEO of Philippines, Unilever North Africa, and I can go on and on. During his 8 years at the helm of HUL, the market capitalization of the company has increased more than fourfold, from $17 billion to over $75 billion, making it one of the most valuable companies in this country. Under his leadership, HUL has won several awards and recognition, including the prestigious Economic Times ET Company of the Year and Corporate Citizen of the Year awards. He's a director on the board of Indian School of Business, ISB, Senior Vice President of FICCI, member of the Breach Candy Hospital Trust and South Asia Advisory Board of Harvard Business School. He chairs Vikasa, a coalition of top Indian and MNC companies, and co-chairs advisory network to the high-level panel for a sustainable ocean economy. Mr. Mehta was conferred the honorary degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Business Management by Xavier University, Bhubaneswar, recognized as Business Leader of the Year by the All India Management Association, Best CEO Multinational by Forbes India Leadership Awards, and several other recognition from from prestigious institutions. A firm believer that doing well and doing good are two sides of the same coin. He propagates the cause of compassionate capitalism. So I'd like to hear a little bit about that today. I firmly believe maybe it's a paradox, but if it's not, I would like to hear from you. Under his leadership, HUL has been driving several initiatives to address environmental and societal issues, which now are known as ESG. Through Hindustan Unilever Foundation and its partners, water potential of more than 1.3 trillion liters has been created by democratizing water management in thousands of villages across the country. HUL has empowered over 130,000 Shakti entrepreneurs, impacted over 150 million people through the Swachh Bharat health and hygiene programs, and HUL has been a champion of several CSR initiatives. Mr. Mehta is married to Mona, who's also a chartered accountant by training. They have twin daughters, Naina and Roshni, who studied at MIT, Cornell, and Harvard universities. Mr. Mehta, I can't thank you enough for sparing your 60 minutes for a profession and for chartered accountants. This is going to be a great personal learning for me as well. Satish ji is an industry veteran, an internal audit veteran at several groups from L&T to Reliance, Birla Group. I have not even read his profile. I know him since the time I was doing my chartered accountancy because my family and he go back a very, very long way. Satish ji, what a pleasure it is to host you here, moderate this session. Sanjiv ji, once again on behalf of the entire audience, thanking you profusely. Look forward to the next 16 minutes. Over to you, Satish.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Anand. A very good morning to you, CA Sanjiv Mehta, CA Manish Gadia, the entire WRC team, and to all the lovely participants to this conversation. Before I formally start the CEO Speak show, I urge all the members present here today, as Manish ji just now said, to please vote for the ensuing elections to be held on the 3rd and 4th of December, which is a Friday and a Saturday. Please also request other members to vote in large numbers. As mentioned, this is the 4th program in the series in the past few months, and we have had exceptional leaders such as Mr. K.K. Mistry, Mr. Niranjan Hiranandani, Mr. Premchand Ghoda, and now we have the illustrious Sanjiv Mehta. It continues to be a great honor for me to conduct this show. Vision is the art of seeing what is invisible to others. Mr. Mehta, this must have been one of your traits leading you to such a high position in life that you are in today. There is so much that we want to hear from you, and hence, without any further ado, let's hear it in his own words, presenting to you the one and only CA Sanjiv Mehta. Let me start at the beginning. You've had one of the most successful career graph that any professional would desire to have. What made you choose this wonderful profession, the chartered accountant? See, what were the initial goals that you set for yourself, and who inspired you?
Morning, everyone, and thank you, Satish ji, and absolutely delighted. Yeah, this is a special morning for me, and ICAI is very dear to my heart. I'm a proud chartered accountant, and I'm absolutely delighted to share my perspectives today. Yeah, I'm a quintessential Satish ji middle class Mumbai lad, and my father was a career reserve banker. He worked at Reserve Bank all his life. My parents were immigrants during partition. They came from what is now Punjab in Pakistan. And I grew up where the best moment of the day was the evening dinner when we would all have our meals together and my father would regale us with stories about economy, banking. And I think that was an inspiration for me. I was always good in math and influenced by my dad with stories about banking and economics. So it germinated a seed somewhere deep down to become a chartered accountant. It was very latent because, like most kids of my age, I also wanted to become a cricketer. And I was very passionate about cricket, but soon realized I changed schools to play for the school, Bhatanu High School, which were the champions in Giles and Hari Shield those days. And that was the time when I realized that I don't think I have the talent to make it big in cricket. And then we had an aptitude test in school. And the aptitude test confirmed that I would be a very good finance person. And that then confirmed in me the latent desire which was there to become a chartered accountant. It blossomed. And after my 12th exam, I did my entrance. And even before the graduation, I started my articleship. I did my articles with Mr. N.K.P. Salve, who incidentally was also the chief of Board of Control for Cricket in India. So that's where my cricket connection kept alive. And yes, I was fortunate. I finished my exams. I was amongst the top rank holder. I got prizes in company law, Justice S.M. Shah and Justice U.C. Mazumdar prizes. And yeah, that's how my journey started.
Wow, I think, I'm so tempted to talk about the Giles Shield and the Harris Shield because I was in Don Bosco and we won the Giles Shield under Ravi Shastri in 1976. So it's superb to hear this. It's wonderful to hear.
I just incidentally, just a few weeks back, I had a good conversation with Ravi after he had come back from UK. And that was a nice conversation we had. And he was getting ready to lead India into his last series, T20 series.
Wow, yeah. Wow. I'm getting goosebumps here, sir. I think this is a wonderful, wonderful start. So before I talk about HUL, Permit me to ask you a question on your early part of your corporate journey. You began your career in 1983 with Union Carbide. You were part of the crisis management that worked on the Bhopal gas tragedy in 1984, and we all know what that tragedy was all about. So, what were your thoughts, and I mean, anything? Can you share your experience about that piece of?
Yeah, it was in 1983. In fact, when you get a good rank, I don't know whether it still persists or not, companies reach out to you. Yeah. And I had that time zeroed in on the Lever group of companies and Union Carbide. And that time, Lever group was not all under one banner of Hindustan Unilever. There was HLL, there was Brookbond, there was Lipton, there was Dumduma, there were Ponds India. So it was, the businesses were in different entities. And of course, if you were to join them, not in HLL, but say in Lipton, they would place you in Calcutta. And Union Carbide, which was of equal size to HLL then, was headquartered, corporate office was in Mumbai. So it wasn't surprising that a Mumbai lad chose Union Carbide. And I started with corporate finance then. And then I remember one day, Mr. Vijay Gokhale, who was the chairman, he called me and he said, incidentally, Mr. Gokhale has had a great influence in my life. And he just passed away last weekend. And he called me and said, Sanjiv, I want you to learn business. So I said, Mr. Gokhale, I would love to learn business. And Mr. Gokhale said, I would then like you to join audit. So he saw my face that I wasn't excited. So he asked me, you don't look excited about it. So I said, Mr. Gokhale, I finished my audit part during my articleship. So he said, no, this is not the audit which you have done. This is going to be management audit. And Union Carbide was a conglomerate. So he said, you will do management audit in different parts of the business, chemicals and plastic, agriculture products, carbons and metals, consumer products, ever-ready, etc. So he says, you will learn business. So I said, okay, Mr. Gokhale, that sounds exciting, but what if I don't like? So he said, drop me a message and I'll take you back. I said, that's a deal. So that's how it started. Unfortunately, we had this ghastly tragedy called the Bhopal gas tragedy 1.5 years later. And within a few weeks, I got a call from headquarters and they said, I have to go to Bhopal and be part of the crisis team. Now here I was a 24-year-old and I was parachuted to Bhopal in the midst of the biggest industrial disaster in the world, and I was made a member of a small crisis team, which was handling the biggest industrial disaster. And the crisis team, of course, was reporting directly to the chairman. And I believe that's when a boy became a man. Yeah, so it was, while the tragedy was of immense proportions, to me, it was a learning of a lifetime. That was the time when the CBI was investigating, so it was all about liaising with CBI. That was the time when the court case was being handled in the District Court of New York. So it was dealing with the Indian lawyers, American lawyers. That was the time we were closing down the operations. So we had to neutralize the balance MIC in the factory, then close down all operations. So it was 1.5 years of very intense efforts. And I got to understand a global corporation and how it operates at very close quarters.
Oh, too good, too good. So leadership, as I would say, is not about the size of our office or title on our business card. It's about the depth of our commitment and our passion to get things done.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Satish, I tell my salesmen also that in their own right, they are big leaders because they handle territories, they lead salesmen, they lead merchandisers, they lead a lot of people, they inspire them. So leadership is not about hierarchy. Leadership is about ownership. Leadership is about accountability. That's what makes a leader. And there's a very fine difference between responsibility and accountability. I've chosen the word accountability very carefully. Responsibility is given, accountability is taken. Yeah, so as a leader, you take on, and it could be leadership of anything. Yeah, it could be leadership of your building society. It could be leadership of the school, parents, teachers. It could be leadership of the community, or it could be leadership of the teams that you run.
Absolutely. And what's very important is do what's right the right way at the right time. That's
Oh, absolutely. You're so right, Satish. Right. There are many times as business leaders, as professionals, you would reach a crossroad. And I have been very clear, always pursue the harder right than the easier wrong.
Perfect. So now let me come to your role in HUL. You are what your deep driving desire is. As your desire is, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. As your deed is, so is your destiny. You are the chairman and managing director of Hindustan Unilever, which is India's largest FMCG. Mr. Mehta, just tell us what are the couple of things that make you really proud about your group?
Yeah. Satish, my business is a paradox. It is lasting stability and continuous change. So we have to identify what are the things which are going to be timeless and what are the things which you are going to reimagine and reinvent. So in HUL or Unilever, our purpose and values are timeless. Yeah, and if you go to any Unilever business anywhere in the world, you will find similar values, values of integrity, values of respect, values of pioneering, and we always pride ourselves, Satish Bhai, that we are a purpose-driven and values-led company. And so those are the timeless things, and those are the things which we build upon. But business is not static. The environment is not static. Yeah, the consumers evolve, the context changes, the competitors change. So to be relevant, just like a timeless brand, you have to remain contemporary. So that means you have to reimagine yourself and reinvent yourself. Now, you asked your question, what am I proud of? First and foremost, I'm so proud of the team I lead. They are absolutely amazing people. Yeah, we are the employer of choice in the country, so we are able to recruit the best engineers, the best MBAs, the best chartered accountants. And we recruit them, make them better, and they do an amazing work for the company. I have got an amazing top team of leaders, and they would man to man, woman to woman, compare themselves with the best leaders of any company anywhere in the world. So I'm very proud of my team, first and foremost. The second, I'm very proud about how we have navigated the last 8 years, series of challenges. Whether it was the slowdown of the economy, whether it was demonetization, whether it was GST, or whether it is the pandemic. And we have grown majestically. We have improved operating margins by 100 bps per annum. And when you have growth and your margin improvement, and you have capital velocity with return on capital employed close to 3 digits, so it's not surprising that you end up creating immense value for your stakeholders. So we have created immense value for our stakeholders. So that's one bit. But for us, stakeholders are not just shareholders. Yeah, we come from a very clear school of thought, Satish ji, that if you look after your consumers, your customers, your employees, the planet and the society, and if you do the right things, then the value does get created. Yeah, so I never tell my team, Satish, that our strategy is to move from $75 billion to $100 billion. No. Yeah, we keep doing the right thing for our consumers, keep enriching their lives, and in the process, the value will get created. So whether the work that we have done on water conservation in a country, the work that we have done on behavior change, the work we have done on sanitation and hygiene of women's empowerment not just through the Project Shakti, but also internally. When I came in, Satish Bhai, the number of women in our management team, total managers, were just about 22%. Now it is 42%. And in another 2-3 years, we'll become gender balanced. And now we are looking at ourselves that how do we represent the consumer base of the country within us? So we should be representing India when it comes to the people who work for us. So that's the next journey of diversity and inclusion. And last but not the least, one of our jobs, Satish Bhai, is to leave the company better than when we inherited it. So we have been working on reimagining HUL, putting data technology center stage. And I'm so pleased with the work that has happened across the value chain. And in another couple of years, the HUL of tomorrow will be dramatically different from the HUL of yesterday.
Wow. In fact, you just answered some part of my question, which I had on what happened and how the market capitalization went over 75 billion US since you've taken over. But I think you answered most of that question. And I would always say that forces against us can never be more powerful than the force within us. This is what I picked up from your answer.
Absolutely. You know, Satish Bhai, that at the end of the day, as individuals, whether you're working in profession or whether you're working in a corporate environment or you're working for government, your motivators come from within. There could be moments when there are external stimulus. But most of the days, you know, in another 3 months, I'll be completing 20 years as God has been kind, as CEO or chairman of different companies across the world. And when I get up in the morning, I'm so excited to start the day as if it was my first day as CEO.
Wow.
Yeah, and that is the motivation you get from within.
Wow. You also head the Unilever's business in South Asia, which covers India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Nepal, and also a member of the Unilever Leadership Executive, which is the Unilever's Global Executive Board. How difficult is it to establish global businesses, and how have you managed to make it appear so easy?
Yeah. You know, Satish Bhai, Unilever is a quintessential multinational. Every year, somewhere in the world, 3 billion people use one or more of our brands. In India, about 95% of the households across the spectrum of the society, yeah, from the bottom of pyramid to the very rich, use one or more of our brands. So it has got a massive footprint. And so it is, in many ways, much of one of the most widely, from a reach perspective, one of the most widely business corporations in the world with the largest footprint. And so it is exciting to be part of the global executive board, where you sit on strategic matters to run the global corporation. And the way we have done is we have got divisions, or the product divisions, which are essentially home care, beauty and personal care, and foods and refreshments. Then we have got the global functions like supply chain, finance, legal, HR, and then you have the markets. So it is a metrics organization. And when you have such a large organization, of course, there is an element of complexity, but these are complexities like a good cholesterol, yeah, and like a high density lipoprotein. It while you make a matrix, but you also have to ensure that people in the markets and people in the global functions can very easily have line of sight to what they are doing and what the results would be. So that's what we try to do as a corporation. And our biggest assets, Satish Bhai, have been people and brands. And now I say it's people, brands, and data. These are our three biggest assets. And we have some absolutely amazing brands, which are timeless brands. Yeah, whether it is Brook Bond, whether it is Lux, whether it is Surf Excel, whether it is Dove. These are absolutely brands which were relevant. Many of them were relevant for our grandparents, they were relevant for our parents, they are relevant for us, and hopefully they'll remain relevant for our children and grandchildren. And that is how a large corporation with purpose and values. So you go step into any Unilever office. The language is similar, the values are similar, the purpose is similar, most of the brands are similar, and that's how we run the business.
You make it sound so simple, and I completely believe in this line that says successful people have the skill to make complex things simple. And hearing you, I fully agree with this. In the recently concluded AGM, you have reiterated your belief in the Indian growth story. You mentioned that the effects of the pandemic are just a pause in India's consumption and growth story, and that with a growing middle class, one of youngest populations in the world, and rising internet penetration, India is poised for unprecedented growth. We are keen to hear more of this from you.
Yeah,
Sir.
I am a very optimist person, and I'm a firm believer of the India story. Let us pause and reflect a bit on India's journey, 75 years since independence. Yes, Satish Bhai, when we got our independence, our coffers were empty. We didn't have anything. If you were to take the GDP of India in 1947 and adjust it to current prices, the GDP of the country was less than the market cap of Hindustan Unilever today. So we were such a small country. And for the first, say, about 4 decades, we grew at an average of 3.5%. And the population was growing at 1.5%. And so the per capita increase was just a measly in 1.5 to 2%. Then when the country embarked the reforms, the famous reforms of 1991, from then to now, for 3 decades, we've grown at an average of about 6.5%. So it was a dramatic shift. And that has catapulted us to a $3 trillion economy. And all of us feel mighty proud that when you take the ranking of the top economies, we come in the top 5-6 economies. But our per capita income is still about $2,000 per capita GDP. Yeah. So that's still very small. And as a country, we need a period of about a decade to 2 decades when we should be growing consistently for 8-9%. And if we were to do that, then we could catapult ourselves not just to a 5 trillion, but a $10 trillion economy in the next 13 to 15 years. And that is something we as a country should aim for. And that would require, Satish Bhai, not a strategy of either or, but a strategy of and. Now let me explain what is a strategy of and. Say if you take the big companies in the country, big corporations, We have got only about 600 companies with a turnover of more than $500 million. Yeah. We need big companies to be many more. We need at least 2,000 big companies. Because big companies, they have the resources, they have the deep pockets. They are also the catalyst of change and innovation. Then you come to the next hand, which is MSMEs. When the financial crisis happened in the US, about 60% of the jobs between 2008 to 13 were created by the MSME sector in the US. And MSME sector today consists of about 40% of the total labor force in the US is employed by MSMEs. Now, in our case, we have very few solid MSMEs. We have millions of micro enterprises. Now, micro enterprises are neither resilient nor are they job creating. So we have to create an environment where the MSMEs blossom. They have access to capital, they have access to know-how, they have access to talent, and we need to create an ecosystem where they can blossom. Then when you look at agriculture, which employs about 40% of the total labor force, but the share of agriculture in the world trade is a measly 1.5–2%. Now, India, with the land under cultivation, we could become a granary to the world. But that would require a lot of reforms in agriculture. That would require much more mechanization, because today, 80% of the land holding in the country is with farmers who have less than 2 hectares of land. Yeah, so you cannot have modern irrigation, modern mechanized farming. So that is again an area which needs to be transformed. So, whether it is agriculture, whether it is small sector, whether it is services, whether it is exports. Now look at exports also. India's merchandise exports this year, of course, have been doing well. Will be in the vicinity of $400 billion. And we will have services export of about $150 billion. Our exports should be running into a couple of $1 trillion. Now, exports means we have to be competitive on cost, quality, on innovation and service. That is when we will be able to become a big export nation. The other is startups. It is so heartening to see people getting into the startup culture that has started. And today, most of the startup financing is happening with foreign capital that is coming in. But we also need to create an ecosystem where domestic capital, family offices, angel investors, they start investing much more. India needs managers, India needs professionals, India needs entrepreneurs. But if you look at the foundation today, with all the structural reforms that have taken place, and the industry, the innovation, the education that has been laid, I think now is the time for us to take off. And if we can sustain growth rate of 8 to 10% over 10–15 years, then we would be able to look back and say that during our lifetime, India has transformed itself from an emerging market to a middle income country. That is what we should aspire for. But I am very optimistic. I'm very optimistic about it.
It really shows in what you say. I had so many more questions for you as far as your journey in HUL is concerned. But let me turn it around a little bit and move on to something which will attract the audiences a little more. Given your personal experience, what is it that we accountants need to do to become CEOs? Far, far beyond our accountancy and tax knowledge and auditing knowledge. But what is it that we need to do as accountants to become CEOs?
Thank you, Satish. That's a very good question, and that's a question often people ask me. First, let me again, like an optimist, tell you what do we have. First is, as chartered accountants, We are trained in accounting and finance. We can appreciate and understand business models. And whatever industry you be in, I think one thing which is common is that dollars or euros or rupees, the common denominator. And we have a deep understanding of that. So we come with a position of strength. Yeah. But you may be a good chartered accountant and you need not necessarily become a CEO. To become a CEO, Satish Bhai, you have to fall in love with business. Yeah, say in consumer goods, you have to love your consumers. You have to love your brands. You have to understand how you meet their unmet needs. In my career, besides working in corporate finance and Bhopal gas tragedy, I have worked in M&A. I have worked in sales and marketing. I have worked in supply chain. So I have worked in different functions which have readied me to become a CEO. And I can speak marketing to marketeers. I can speak supply chain to supply chain people. I can speak sales to salespeople. And that is when you understand your value chain, your different levers of business, and how they all come together. And that is when you can aspire to become a CEO. So to budding professionals or young chartered accountants who dream of becoming CEOs, I would suggest get away from your comfort zone. Yeah, get into the deep end of the pool. Get into where the business gets done in your organization. Put your hand up. Take up those jobs. And that's when you will start understanding the business. You'll start loving the business, and then you can aspire to be a CEO.
Wonderful. I think this is going to help us to really think so differently. I would urge all the people in the audience to please post their questions, put it up in the question box, and we'll be taking a couple of questions before we really close. I have so many more questions, but I would love to take a couple of questions from the audience as well. So please ensure that you have a free flow of the questions. Let me come now to Mr. Sanjiv Mehta as a person. You are a director on the board of Indian School of Business, Senior Vice President of Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, member of the Breach Candy Hospital Trust and South Asia Advisory Board of Harvard School. You chair the Vikasa, which is a coalition of top Indian and MNCs, and also co-chair the advisory network to the high-level panel for the sustainable ocean economy. So many different aspects of your life, and I've called out only a few of them. So many different aspects of various different things that a person can do, which you are doing. So as you're involved in so many activities, what does a typical day look like for you?
All right. Satish Bhai, I'm an early riser. I'm generally up by 5:30 kind of. And mornings are time when I finish my mail. I read all the pre-reads for the meetings that day. I don't attend any meeting without having read the papers. And I ready myself for the day. I also do some yoga exercises. We do our walks every day. I try to do about 8 to 10,000 steps every day. And that's when I ready myself. Now we have long intensive days. Yeah, one is running the business in India, then running the business in South Asia. Then also as a member of the global board, our meetings start in London time. And very often they run till late in the evening. Before the pandemic, I used to travel to London twice a month. Now we have more virtual meetings. Only we had the first in-person meeting about 2 months back in London. But otherwise, we've been having virtual meetings. So the virtual meetings run pretty late. And then as part of the FICCI Presidium, we often meet at 9:30 in the evening. So there are pretty long hours. And in between, I have to do my reading. Yeah, I'm a pretty voracious reader. And you have to, just like you need physical exercise for your body, you need reading for keeping your mind up to date, your thinking up to date. So I read a lot. And at the end of the day, Satish, my life is about trade-offs. Yeah, time is limited. So the question always is, how do you make the most of it? I'll give you a very simple example. When I travel to London, I generally take Emirates. I find it very comfortable. And I have often observed that while most of the people are watching movies or sleeping long distance flight to London, I finish reading a book. Yeah, so that's what the trade-offs are. And I don't get as much time to watch Netflix serials or movies, but that's all right. I spend time on reading, and my passion for cricket is still very much alive. So I still steal time to watch cricket wherever the team in blue is playing, and I'm still cheering them. And if I get a chance, I go and watch them in different parts of the world. I love sports, different kinds, from F1 to soccer to Olympics to track and field events and to cricket. And so one balances, tries to bring about a balance. You know, Satish, my life becomes enriching when you can balance your extrinsic motivators with your intrinsic motivators. Now, let me explain. Extrinsic motivators are very obvious. You want to do a bigger job, you want to make your company more successful, yeah, gain market share, grow the business. But your intrinsic motivators are the joy that I get. You know, the reason I'm an ISB board and Harvard Business School board, because to me, education in India is very important. So how do we put our inputs in ensuring that these institutions get up to the best possible level? The second is, for me, again, healthcare is extremely important. That's the reason I, devote myself to the breach candy board, for instance. And for me, environment is very important. That's the reason I'm in the high-level panel on ocean economy. So even when you look at Vikasa, what we have done as the big corporations, we have picked up certain intractable problems facing the country, like waste to value, like low-cost healthcare, like sustainable mining. Yeah, and we try to create ecosystems which can help solve that problem. So to me, my duty to the country is as important as running my business. So many of these activities, I regularly get invitations to join the boards of for-profit companies. But I have been very clear that so long as I remain as the head of Hindustan, Unilever and Unilever Group, I won't take for-profit companies directorships, but I'll devote my time to non-profit institutions. Similarly, the reason I have got myself involved in FICCI is because I believe FICCI as an institution which represents industry and commerce bodies in the country has a very big role to play for policy matters, for advocacy, and helping its members. So again, that is something which I'm very passionate about. Satish bhai, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, I think that is the important thing, that you must make use of all the opportunities that really come in. So we've got about 10 minutes more, sir. We'll be taking some questions from
Please.
the audience as well. I'm just waiting for that to come, and which is why
While you get ready with the questions, I would also urge all people on the call that the elections are going to be held over the weekend, and it would be fabulous if you take part in the elections, cast your vote, because at the end of the day, democracy is strong only when people exercise their franchise. So similarly, if you want to strengthen the chartered accountants body, then we need to exercise our franchise. So I would definitely urge you to please go and cast your votes.
So nice. Thank you very much for that piece of. I'm just awaiting the questions, but I have a couple of more questions. In fact, I had too many more questions, but I'll just take this one, which Arun also spoke about in the initial talk. I read on the social media that you are a firm believer that doing well and doing good are two sides of the same coin, and
Absolutely.
that you propagate the cause of compassionate capitalism. Can you
Yeah.
elaborate a bit on this?
Yeah, you know, there was a time in the world, the Milton Friedman thinking, that the business of business is business. Yeah, that thinking has become pretty outdated. At the end of the day, we are a part of the society. And we will be a healthy business only if the society we live in is healthy. Now, the society gives us a license to operate. And that is the reason you need to have a multi-stakeholder model. The unidimensional focus on just creating shareholder wealth, I don't think is the right model. You have to ensure that you create value for all the stakeholders. And that is when you would be living up to the license that has been given to you by the society to operate. And that is where compassion comes in. And if I may, you know, I have been propagating compassionate capitalism for many years. But if you look at the last 2 years since pandemic, I think the compassion as a leadership trait has come to the fore. Earlier, in any leadership classes, you would never hear the word compassion. But now you hear that it is such an important trait for a leader to have compassion, compassion for your fellow beings, compassion for your neighbors, compassion for the society, because only when we come together can we solve the problems that face the world.
Absolutely,
Similarly,
Mr. Mehta.
climate change. Similarly, Satish bhai, if you look at, you know, for COVID-19, we've got a vaccine. But for climate, we won't have a vaccine. Yeah, so if we don't all pull together and ensure that global warming doesn't exceed 1.5 degrees Celsius, we will be as a world in pretty dire straits. Large parts of a country would go underwater. And we are seeing glaciers melting, floods coming, droughts coming. So it is going to be a catastrophe if we are not able to control the global warming. And again, here, the concern for the planet should be absolutely front and center for every business leader.
Passion and compassion, you really touched a very wonderful subject. Just one last question from my side, and I'll quickly go on to the question section. And this is a favorite question. What would CA Sanjiv Mehta be doing in that 1 hour if God permitted you to have an extra hour each day?
Oh, lovely. You know, I would use this hour in different ways on different days. I am at my best, Satish bhai, when I get ideally a sleep of 7 hours. And I'm so lucky I have to put my head on the pillow and I'm off. But there are days when I don't even get 6 hours of sleep. So one is, now increasingly medical science is also proven that a good night's sleep and adequate sleep is so important for the well-being of a person. If I've had my sleep, then if I get an extra hour, I would love to spend with my family. Yeah, because I always believe that I don't give as much time to my family as I ought to. So I would love to spend more time with my family. And I think these two are so important things. For one is look after yourself, and second is look after your family. And if there are days when I've spent adequate time on my sleep and my family, then I'll give it for the causes which I'm most passionate about.
So nice to hear this from you, sir. So nice to hear this. I mean, it's really too good. Now I'll just take a couple of questions from the audience. There is one question which I particularly liked, and I'll not read out the question, but I'll just interpret the question in my way. It says that HUL makes such wonderful products which are so useful to the society. But there's something else that you do. You guys have a factory of chief executive. You actually have a factory of chief executive. How do you manage such talented people in the company, and how do you manage their aspirations? And what is it that motivates them to do better and better? Very
That's right.
beautiful.
It's a wonderful question. There are over 400 CXOs in India and the world who proudly wear a badge trained by HUL. I think the first thing, Satish Bhai, is that you need to have a very strong employer brand. An employer brand enables you to attract the best. But how do you build an employer brand? Employer brand depends on the purpose and values you have. Employer brand depends on the kind of training you give to people. Employer brand depends on the meritocracy that you have in the organization. When I joined Unilever, Satish Bhai, I didn't know anyone. And not knowing anyone and then rising to the very board of a global corporation is in many ways a testament to the values that are not just preached but practiced by a company like Unilever, where the only thing that counts is merit and a belief that even excellence can be improved. So we take risk with people, we give them big responsibilities at a young age, and we let them blossom. In our business, Satish Bhai, is we don't fear failures. So we do scores of experiments. And the only thing we tell people is don't repeat the same mistake. If you want to fail on doing something different. Yeah, but that is how we have created a culture where the best talent gets attracted to us and we make them even better.
Mr. Mehta, there are so many questions, and I'm feeling very bad that I need to just kind of ration these kind of questions. I'll just ask you one more question because I promised you that I'll stop at the 60th minute on the dot. At what point of your life in HUL did you realize that you will become the CEO? Was there any such specific turning point?
I'm glad you asked this question. I became a CEO 20 years back. And I'll tell you, I was very early in my life, inspired by Mr. Gokhale and Union Carbide. I knew that I wanted to run a business. So there came a time when I was a commercial director on the board of Unilever Bangladesh. And the finance group in Unilever wanted me to go to London and join the global finance team. And the business group president of South Asia, who are my predecessors at that stage, he was a wonderful Australian gentleman called Jeff Fraser. He said, I want you to take over as the chairman of Unilever Bangladesh. And I was absolutely delighted. So there was this pull from different quarters. Then one wanted me to go to London, the other wanted me to become a chairman. And this went up to adjudication to the board member of Unilever. And the board member of Unilever was very clear that we should give to Sanjiv what he desires. And so I opted for becoming a business manager, becoming a chairman of the company. And so one is you need to have a desire. You need to dream big, you need to think big, and then you need to act big. So that's very important. And when you desire something, then you need to build capabilities which will ready you to get the job. It shouldn't be just a desire or a dream. If you don't have capability and skills, then you will never be able to make it. And when you get the job, then give your best to it so that you succeed And then your company is willing to take bigger risk with you and give you bigger jobs. So I started as a chairman of Unilever Bangladesh. Now I run a $7-8 billion business in South Asia, one of the most valuable companies in South Asia, and a member of the board. So, but I'll tell you, not all the variables are in your hands. There are many variables that are not in your hands. So while you should have ambition, you should never forget the house number from where you come. So you should be grounded, you should be realistic, and you should have a ample dose of humility. And when you combine ambition with humility, and I call it ambition, then Satish Bhai, you have got a very potent and strong combination.
Classic, classic. If I had 1 hour extra every day, I would love to spend it with you, and I would at least expect that I will be able to spend 5 minutes a day with you. That's
Oh,
my
you're
wish.
so kind. You're so kind, Satish.
So nice. I think it's about it's just it's 11 o'clock. Just give me 2 more minutes and I'll conclude. Mr. Mehta, just 2 more minutes, please. So what a wonderful session we've had today. I mean, there's so much of learnings. I wish I could write with both my hands. I brought 2 pens anyway, but I wish I could write down with both my hands here. But here are some of the learnings that I had. That Mr. Mehta is a proud chartered accountant. And it really showed in the way in which he said it, and it really came from his heart. Intuitively, he's a numbers person. Crisis converted him from a boy to a man. Facing crisis successfully makes a man and also woman. HUL is the employer of choice. 3 billion consumers use the products daily. What a big responsibility. A chartered accountant should train to be a business guy. Speak in the language that the business guys understand. Ultimately, rupees, euro, dollars is the denominator, irrespective of what you do in businesses. These are some of the direct learnings that I got. But on a philosophical note, I think I just call out about 8 or 9 things that I really took away from this. From what I heard from what you said in the last, say, 55 minutes, sir, I felt the following. Happiness is when you think what you say and what you do are in harmony. We could see this flowing through your conversation, sir. If you have choices, choose the best. If you have no choice, then do your best. To be successful, you have to have your heart in your business and your business in your heart. True leaders don't create followers, they just create more leaders. Ability is what you are capable of doing. Motivation determines what you do, and attitude determines how well you do it. You don't become what you want, you become what you believe. Greatness lies not in being strong and knowledgeable, but in the right use of strength and knowledge. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Getting up at 5:30 in the morning is one kind of discipline. Champions do not become champions when they win the event, but in the hours, weeks, months, and years they spend preparing for it. The victorious performance itself is merely the demonstration of their championship character. Life is not about steps you have taken, but the footprints you have left behind. There are so many footprints that you have left behind, Mr. Mehta. I require a 100-page notebook to just note them. And one very important line that you have said, sir, which is going to remain in our hearts for a long, long time, is that a CA can certainly make a great CEO, and you have demonstrated this in such a fantastic way. 60 minutes of immense pleasure for all of us, and I'm so grateful to dear God that I got this opportunity. Manish bhai, thank you very much. I got this opportunity, Mr. Mehta, to interact with you. It's a blessing for me. Thank you very, very, very much. We are all so happy that you took out time to make it this morning. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Satish Bhai. You are very generous with your comments.
Really great session, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. All of you, take care of yourself and stay safe. Goodbye.